So I had mentioned before in one of the videos before we went to Oshkosh that I was going to be keeping track of the expenses and that I was going to do a quick video afterwards to show what the projected costs were versus what the actual costs were. So I went ahead and I just put something together real quick, just a little spreadsheet with the numbers in it so that we could look at that. So here's the spreadsheet that I made for the possible expenses for this year's trip to Oshkosh. So now keep in mind, with this trip, John came from the Dallas area and he picked me up in Tulsa. So these costs that I've put out here are just from Tulsa to Oshkosh and back. So John's expenses were obviously a little bit higher because he had to come to and from Dallas as well. And what I've also done is we've split the cost on everything possible. So the cost of food is for one person, but everything else, and the miscellaneous costs are also for one person. Everything else I estimated dividing it by 2. So here I've got a column for potential expenses and then what the estimated cost of those expenses were going to be. So John had borrowed a family member's Prius because it gets great gas mileage. So for gas, we were assuming, again, this is just for my half, about $62 to get there and back, which is really low. Then we were going to camp, which they charged a minimum. You had to get 3 days. So for my half, that was going to be $42. Now, to be able to get the camping and the admissions discount, one of us had to get an EAA membership because we had both let ours lapse. So John went ahead and did that, and I was his guest. But the cost for that yearly membership divided by 2 was $20. Now I was estimating about $150 for food. I brought a lot of food with me, but then I also knew I was going to want to get snacks and drinks and things while I was there. So I put $150 as my estimate for that. Then for the 3 days of admission, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which the cost for Sunday was less, that was going to be $44. And then I just added in $150 for miscellaneous. I was thinking I was going to, probably buy, a shirt and maybe some shirts or mugs or something for my friends. And then I was thinking maybe even taking a ride and Bell 47 or something like that. So I estimated that it was going to be around $468. That was going to be my half of the expenses to go up to Oshkosh, do everything I wanted to do within reason for those 3 days. Now, in reality, I was actually very surprised, especially given how difficult things went, that the cost was much lower than that, in fact. Gas ended up being just about what we expected it to be. Camping fee was set at 3 days, so $42. EAA membership was set. Food, I ended up spending only $108 on everything. That included the groceries that I bought beforehand to bring up there, getting drinks while I was there, and, getting snacks on the way there and back, and food while I was there. Admission was set. That was going to be a cost that wasn't going to change. However, at that $44, we ended up leaving early, so we didn't even use the admission for Sunday. So that was kind of a wasted expense, but then at the same time, we didn't know that that was going to be the case. We had intended on planning on being there Sunday as well. And then miscellaneous was really where my expenses, at least, were much lower. I didn't end up taking any rides in anything. John went for a ride in the Ford Trimotor, but I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find anything that I was willing to buy there. Maybe it was just because it was the end of the week and they were all sold out of everything good, but there wasn't any shirts that I liked or anything like that. So I didn't go on any rides. I didn't purchase anything souvenir-wise. This $32 expense is just half of the fact that we had to buy another tent while we were there. So that's just half of that expense. But that really brought the grand total to only $306 to go all the way up and spend 3 days at Oshkosh and come back. It's really not that bad for everything that went into that. So there it is. That's what the cost was. it ended up not being as much as I was thinking it was going to be, even though there were unexpected costs and some things that we had planned on that we'd already paid for didn't end up happening. It still ended up coming in under budget, so I was pretty happy with that. Even still, if I had been more diligent with things, it could have come in at even cheaper than that, although that's still a pretty low price, especially considering much of those costs were fixed anyway. But so if that's something that's a concern for you, look at the options, because you might be surprised at what you can make happen and what you can accomplish with on a relatively small budget.